Hello there, and welcome to the Sleepy Science Channel. Tonight, we're stepping into one of the most fascinating and unsettling frontiers of the human experience: the hidden forces that can shape thought, belief, and behavior. The idea of mind control often sounds like science fiction, something distant or dramatic. But the truth is far more subtle and far more present in everyday life. From the way attention can be guided, to how beliefs can take root, to the invisible patterns that influence decisions before we are even aware of them, the mind is constantly being shaped in ways we rarely notice. Some of these forces are natural, woven into how the brain works. Others are learned, refined, and used throughout history in everything from persuasion and leadership to media, culture, and technology. And somewhere in between, there are moments that blur the line between influence and control in ways that can feel almost impossible. If you enjoy these gentle journeys, I invite you to like, subscribe, or share a thought below. It helps others find their way here too, one sleepy soul at a time. But for now, all you need to do is get settled in. Let your shoulders soften. Let your breathing slow. And allow your mind to settle into stillness as we explore the hidden science of influence together. Let's begin. Your brain can be steered before you realize a choice was made. One of the strangest discoveries in neuroscience is that the brain can begin preparing an action before conscious awareness catches up. In famous laboratory experiments, people were asked to make a simple movement whenever they felt like it, such as pressing a button or flexing a wrist. While they waited, electrodes detected a build-up of activity in the brain that started before the person reported deciding. It was as if the mind had already leaned toward action, while the conscious self was still narrating the moment. That does not prove free will is an illusion. The debate is still wide open, but it does reveal something deeply unsettling and fascinating. Awareness may not always be the commander we imagine. Sometimes it seems more like the late arriving witness, stepping in just after hidden machinery has already begun to turn. The feeling of choosing may be real, yet not the whole story. Hypnosis can change pain, memory, and behavior without magic. Hypnosis is often treated like stage entertainment, with swinging watches and dramatic commands. But its real power is far more interesting. Under the right conditions, suggestion can alter genuine experience. Some people under hypnosis report less pain during medical procedures. Brain scans have even shown changes in regions involved in attention and pain processing. That means the effect is not just pretending or going along with the performance. It is a measurable shift in how the mind handles sensation. Hypnosis can also shape memory, focus, and habits, though not with unlimited power. It does not turn people into helpless puppets, and it cannot force impossible acts against every value a person holds. What makes it fascinating is that language alone can sometimes reach into perception and change what feels real. A voice delivered with trust and expectation can help the brain rewrite its own experience from the inside. Repetition can make strange ideas feel true with alarming speed. The human brain loves familiarity. When a statement is heard again and again, it begins to feel easier to process, and that ease can be mistaken for truth. Psychologists call this the illusory truth effect. It means a claim does not always need strong evidence to gain power. Sometimes it only needs to keep returning. A rumor repeated across dinner tables, headlines, podcasts, and scrolling feeds can start to feel steady and familiar, even when it began as nonsense. That is part of what makes propaganda so effective. The mind is built to save effort, and familiar information takes less effort to handle. Over time, ease becomes comfort, and comfort begins to resemble credibility. This is why repeated slogans can shape entire cultures. Not because every listener is gullible, but because the brain quietly treats the well-known as safer than the uncertain. What returns often can start to feel like what belongs. People will obey authority even when it clashes with conscience. In one of psychology's most chilling lessons, ordinary people were placed in a laboratory and instructed to deliver what they believed were painful electric shocks to another person. Many protested. Many looked distressed. Yet a surprising number continued when an authority figure calmly insisted that the experiment required it. The study became famous not because it revealed monsters, but because it revealed something far more unsettling. Many people do not need cruelty in their hearts to do harmful things. They only need a system that transfers responsibility upward. A white coat and a confident instruction can make private doubt feel smaller. That does not mean humans are doomed to obey. Many participants resisted, and real life is more complex than a lab. Still, the experiment remains unforgettable because it showed how easily conscience can be pressured when authority appears legitimate, organized, and certain. Obedience can feel frighteningly ordinary. Tiny social cues can quietly reshape what you think you saw. Memory feels like a recording, but it behaves more like wet paint. It can be smudged, brightened, or altered by suggestion after the event is over. In classic experiments, people watched footage of a car accident and were later asked questions about it. When the wording changed from one group to another, memory changed with it. Ask how fast the cars were going when they smashed, and people often recalled greater speed and more damage than if the word hit was used instead. Some even remembered broken glass that was never there. That is astonishing because the cue arrived after the event. A tiny change in language reached backward and reshaped what seemed already settled. This matters far beyond the laboratory. Eyewitness testimony, police interviews, family arguments, and news reports can all influence recall. What we remember is not always what happened. Sometimes it is what happened after someone described it. Advertisers learned long ago that attention can be trained and trapped. Modern advertising is not just about showing products. It is about teaching the mind what to notice, what to want, and what to feel before a rational thought has time to form. Bright colors pull the eye. Repeated jingles stay in memory. Faces looking toward an object quietly guide your gaze there too. Over time, brands become linked with safety, pleasure, status, youth, or belonging. That link can grow so strong that the product starts to feel less like an object and more like a shortcut to identity. The remarkable part is that much of this happens below awareness. You may think you simply preferred one option, when in fact your attention was shaped over months or years. Long before digital algorithms, advertisers were already studying eye movement, emotional association, and timing. They understood that controlling what people notice is often the first step toward controlling what they eventually choose. Fear is one of the fastest tools ever used to control minds. Few forces change the mind as quickly as fear. The moment a threat feels real, attention narrows. The body floods with stress chemicals, and complex reflection gives way to urgent reaction. That is useful if a predator is charging through the grass. It is far more dangerous when leaders, media, or movements learn to trigger the same response on command. Fear makes people cling to certainty. It makes harsh measures sound reasonable. It can turn neighbors into suspects and doubt into disloyalty. History is full of moments when frightened populations accepted surveillance, censorship, exclusion, or violence because fear made those responses feel necessary. This is why fear is such a powerful political and social instrument. It does not need to convince the whole mind. It only needs to alarm the body. Once that happens, the world feels smaller, choices feel fewer, and control can slip in disguised as protection, rescue, or survival. The brain can mistake confidence for truth, even when facts disagree. Humans are deeply sensitive to certainty. A person who speaks smoothly, answers quickly, and sounds sure of themselves can seem more believable than someone careful, qualified, and correct. This creates one of the strangest weaknesses in social judgment. Confidence and accuracy are not the same thing, yet the mind often treats them as if they belong together. In courtrooms, interviews, classrooms, and elections, the most persuasive voice is not always the most truthful one. It may simply be the least hesitant. That is part of why misinformation can spread so effectively through charismatic speakers. The style of delivery can overpower the substance beneath it. We are not only listening for content, we are reading tone, posture, pace, and certainty. Somewhere deep down, confidence feels like evidence of mastery. But confidence can be performed, rehearsed, and weaponized. A bold falsehood can outrun a modest truth simply because it sounds more certain. Sleep, stress, and isolation can make persuasion dramatically more powerful. A rested, connected mind is harder to bend than an exhausted, overwhelmed, lonely one. When sleep is cut short, attention weakens and emotional control becomes more fragile. Under chronic stress, the brain shifts towards survival mode, which favors quick answers and familiar patterns over slow, skeptical thought. Add isolation, and something even more powerful happens. People begin to hunger for belonging, reassurance, and certainty. That makes persuasive groups, intense ideologies, and manipulative relationships feel especially magnetic. This is one reason high-control groups often disrupt sleep, increase pressure, and separate people from outside support. They do not always need brilliant arguments. They can simply weaken the conditions that make independent thinking easier. Once that happens, influence slips in through fatigue, fear, and the desperate relief of finally feeling held by something definite. The mind is not equally persuasive every day. Its openness changes with the body, the environment, and the company it keeps. Some parasites can hijack animal behavior like living puppet masters. Nature has produced forms of mind control far stranger than fiction. Certain parasites do not merely infect animals. They alter what the animal does next. A parasite called toxoplasma can make infected rodents less afraid of cat scent, which increases the chance of being eaten and carries the parasite into the cat, where it reproduces. Airworms grow inside insects and can drive them toward water, where the worm bursts out to continue its life cycle. Fungi such as cordyceps infect insects and manipulate movement, so the host climbs to a place that helps spread spores. These are not vague influences. They are targeted behavioral changes serving another organism's needs. That is what makes them so fascinating and so unsettling. The victim still moves with its own body, yet the pattern of behavior no longer fully belongs to it. In the natural world, control of a mind can become part of another creature's survival strategy. Placebos can trigger real healing simply because belief changed the body. One of the most astonishing things about the human mind is that expectation alone can set real biology in motion. In medical studies, some patients improve after receiving pills with no active drug at all, provided they believe treatment has begun. Pain can ease, tremors can soften, mood can lift. Even measurable changes can appear in heart rate, hormone release, and brain chemistry. This does not mean illness is imaginary. It means belief can become part of the body's response. The brain is constantly predicting what comes next, and those predictions can influence how symptoms are felt and how systems behave. In some cases, the ritual matters too. A white coat, a clinic room, a trusted voice, and the act of treatment can all amplify the effect. It is one of the clearest reminders that the border between mind and body is far less solid than it first appears. Expectations can alter taste, pain, vision, and even physical performance. What you expect to happen can change what you actually experience. Pour the same drink into 2 glasses and tell people that one is expensive, and many will swear it tastes richer. Tell athletes they have taken a performance booster, and some will push harder even when the substance is inert. The same principle shows up in pain studies. A cream described as powerful relief can reduce discomfort before any chemistry has time to act, because the brain prepares for ease and changes the way sensation is processed. Even vision can shift. If the mind is primed to notice a certain shape, color, or threat, perception bends in that direction. This is what makes expectation so powerful. It is not just a thought sitting on top of reality. It is part of the machinery that helps build reality moment by moment. We do not merely detect the world. We meet it with predictions already running. False memories can be planted with shocking ease under the right conditions. Most people trust memory because it feels intimate. It feels owned. It feels like proof. Yet memory is surprisingly open to suggestion, especially when imagination, repetition, and authority are involved. In psychological studies, some people have come to believe they were once lost in a shopping mall as children, even though the event never happened. Others have been nudged toward remembering details that were suggested later by interviewers, relatives, or repeated questioning. The effect becomes stronger when the invented story is plausible and emotionally vivid. Once a person begins picturing it, the line between imagining and remembering can blur. That is what makes this so unsettling. A memory can feel deeply personal and still be partly constructed. This has enormous consequences for therapy, policing, family conflict, and courtroom testimony. The mind does not keep the past in perfect storage. It rebuilds it, and sometimes the rebuild quietly includes things that were never there. People often conform publicly, even when they privately know better. There is a powerful force in the simple act of standing apart. In classic psychology experiments, people were shown an obvious answer to a basic visual problem, then heard a group confidently give the wrong one. Again and again, many participants followed the group, even when their own eyes told them something else. Some later admitted they knew the answer was wrong. They just did not want to be the lone dissenter in the room. That is what makes conformity so fascinating. It does not always erase private belief. Often it merely pushes it underground. People can preserve doubt inside while displaying agreement outside. In everyday life, that can change meetings, classrooms, jury rooms, and entire societies. A false consensus starts to form because each person thinks they are one of the few who sees the problem. Silence becomes evidence. Agreement spreads. Before long, public reality begins to drift away from what many people secretly know. A familiar voice can lower skepticism before a single claim is checked. Trust does not begin only with evidence. It often begins with tone. A voice you know, a rhythm you have heard for years, or a speaker linked to comfort and familiarity can open the door before any argument has been tested. That is one reason broadcasters, influencers, and charismatic hosts can become so persuasive. The listener is not only hearing information, they are hearing reassurance. The sound itself carries emotional history. A trusted voice can feel safe, competent, warm, or wise simply because the brain has learned to associate it with those qualities. Once that association is in place, scrutiny may relax. Claims arrive wrapped in familiarity, and familiarity can feel like proof. This helps explain why misinformation can spread so effectively through beloved figures. The bond comes first. The evaluation comes later, if it comes at all. Sometimes persuasion begins not with what is said, but with the voice that makes the mind willing to receive it. Social proof can make nonsense sound sensible if enough people repeat it. Human beings are constantly checking one another for clues about what is true, safe, admired, or worth attention. That habit is useful in uncertain situations. If everyone in a room suddenly looks upward, you look up too. But the same instinct can be exploited. When many people appear to believe something, the claim itself begins to feel more plausible. Reviews, crowds, trending tags, applause, and visible popularity all send the same message. Others accept this, so maybe you should as well. The problem is that visible agreement is not the same as careful truth. Numbers can be inflated. Crowds can be curated. Bots can imitate consensus. Yet the signal still works because the mind reads popularity as evidence of value or accuracy. This is one reason absurd ideas can become mainstream. Once repetition is paired with apparent public support, even weak claims begin to sound anchored in something larger than themselves. Consensus can be manufactured, then mistaken for reality. Group pressure can distort judgment in ways that feel completely normal. Influence does not always arrive as an obvious demand. Sometimes it feels like atmosphere. Sit inside a room where everyone reacts the same way, laughs at the same moment, approves the same ideas, and treats one version of events as settled, and your own judgment begins to bend. Not because you are weak, but because the social brain is built to track belonging. Human beings survive in groups, and that ancient wiring still shapes how we think. When a group leans strongly in one direction, disagreement starts to feel costly. Doubt becomes awkward. Over time, the mind may stop experiencing the pressure as pressure at all. It simply starts to feel like reality. That is why bubbles form so easily in politics, companies, friendships, and online communities. Once a shared view becomes the emotional norm, people do not just pretend to agree. Their perception of what seems reasonable can begin to shift inside the pressure itself. People trust confident lies more than hesitant truths surprisingly often. Truth does not always win the first impression. In many situations, the mind responds more readily to the person who speaks without pauses, doubt, or visible struggle. Confidence reads as competence. It suggests knowledge, rank, and certainty. Hesitation, by contrast, can be mistaken for weakness, even when it comes from honesty, care, or nuance. That is why a smooth falsehood can travel so well through public life. It arrives with the emotional texture of authority. A truthful person who pauses to weigh details may sound less convincing simply because the performance is less polished. This bias affects witnesses, teachers, politicians, and friends. It shapes who gets believed in rooms where the facts are not immediately visible. The danger is obvious. If confidence becomes a shortcut for truth, the loudest and boldest speaker can outrun reality itself. Sometimes the mind rewards certainty not because it is right, but because certainty feels easier to follow. Music can guide emotion long before words have their turn. Before a speech convinces, before a slogan lands, before a single sentence is understood, music can already be moving the emotional ground beneath it. A low, uneasy note can create tension. A rising swell can promise hope. A pulsing rhythm can build urgency and momentum. Filmmakers have known this for decades. Change the soundtrack under the same image, and the meaning changes with it. A slow melody can make a face seem tragic. A sharp, driving score can make it seem dangerous. That same principle reaches far beyond cinema. Music at rallies, in advertisements, in religious ceremonies, and in stores helps prepare the body to feel what comes next. It sheds breathing, expectation, and pace. This is why music is such a subtle instrument of influence. It works on mood first. By the time language arrives, the emotional direction may already be set, and the listener may mistake that feeling for their own conclusion. Uniforms can create instant obedience by borrowing the power of symbols. A uniform is never just fabric. It carries authority, hierarchy, and expectation before the person inside it even speaks. A lab coat can suggest expertise. A military uniform can signal command. A police badge can create immediate compliance in situations where the same request from an ordinary stranger would be ignored or challenged. This happens because the brain responds quickly to symbols. It sorts people into roles and then adjusts behavior around those roles. That shortcut is useful in many parts of life. It helps societies function. But it also creates a vulnerability. When authority is worn on the body, appearance can borrow trust that has not yet been earned. Experiments and real-world scandals alike have shown how easily people can be misled by status signals. A costume can unlock doors, bypass suspicion, and reshape social behavior in seconds. Sometimes the symbol of power influences the room before the actual person has done anything at all. Scarcity makes ordinary things feel urgent, valuable, and hard to resist. Tell people there's plenty of something, and many will calmly walk past it. Tell them only a few remain, or that the chance will vanish at midnight, and the same object suddenly seems charged with importance. Scarcity changes the emotional temperature of a decision. It creates pressure, sharpens desire, and makes hesitation feel risky. That is why limited editions, vanishing offers, waiting lists, and low stock warnings are used so often. The brain treats possible loss differently from possible gain. Missing out can feel worse than paying too much, choosing badly, or buying something unnecessary. This bias reaches far beyond shopping. Scarcity can make attention more valuable, time more dramatic, and exclusive groups more alluring. Once access feels threatened, people often want the thing more, not less. What is remarkable is how quickly this happens. Something can seem ordinary one moment, then precious the instant the mind believes it may soon be gone. Your attention is easier to direct than your conscious mind expects. Most people feel as though they decide what to notice. In reality, attention is pulled and redirected constantly by movement, novelty, contrast, emotion, and design. A bright object in a dull field grabs the eye. A sudden notion overrides ongoing thought. A threatening face in a crowd rises faster into awareness than a neutral one. Magicians have built entire performances around this weakness, using gestures, timing, and gaze to make people miss what happened right in front of them. The remarkable part is not just that attention can be moved, but that people rarely notice the movement itself. It feels like natural seeing. In daily life, headlines, interfaces, room layouts, and body language all compete to steer that spotlight. Once attention is captured, the rest of the mind often follows. That is why influence begins so often with simple control over where the spotlight falls. First direct the eyes, then shape what the mind builds next. Priming can nudge choices using clues you barely notice. The mind is constantly being prepared by what came just before. A word, an image, a smell, or even a subtle pattern in the room can make certain ideas easier to access without your awareness ever flagging the shift. That is the strange world of priming. If the brain has just been exposed to concepts linked with age, speed, danger, or politeness, later behavior and judgment can sometimes tilt in that direction. Not with absolute power, and not in every experiment, but often enough to reveal something important. The mind does not begin each moment from zero. It carries traces forward. Those traces can influence what feels natural to say, do, notice, or prefer. This matters because everyday environments are full of cues. The music in a shop, the imagery in a campaign, the order of questions in a survey, and the atmosphere of a room can all prime the path your thoughts are more likely to take. The anchoring effect can trap decisions around the first number heard. The first number introduced into a situation can shape judgment long after people think they have moved beyond it. Mention a high price before a lower one, and the lower one feels more reasonable. Ask whether a country has more than a wildly large number of cities, then request an estimate, and estimates drift upward. Start with a low figure, and they drift down. That first value becomes an anchor, and the mind adjusts from it, rather than starting fresh. What makes this so fascinating is that the anchor does not need to be sensible. It can be arbitrary, exaggerated, or irrelevant, and still leave a trace. Negotiators know this. Retailers know it. Anyone setting expectations in a room often knows it, even if only intuitively. The brain likes having a reference point, and once one appears, it can be hard to escape its gravity. A number heard early can quietly bend the whole conversation around itself. Framing changes minds by changing the story around the same fact. Present the same outcome in two different ways, and people may react as if they are hearing two different realities. Say a treatment saves 90 out of 100 patients, and it sounds reassuring. Say the same treatment lets 10 out of 100 die, and it lands with a darker force. Nothing factual has changed. Only the frame has. Yet that frame shapes emotion, risk, moral judgment, and choice. This is one of the most powerful tools in persuasion because it does not need to invent falsehood. It only needs to guide interpretation. Political language uses it constantly. So does journalism, advertising, fundraising, and debate. Is a measure a protection or a restriction? Is a sacrifice a loss or an investment? Is a person a victor, a survivor, a suspect, or a patriot? Each frame invites a different feeling before analysis begins. By changing the story that surrounds a fact, influence can change what the fact seems to mean. Eye contact can increase compliance even when nothing else changes. A steady look can do far more than signal attention. It can create connection, pressure, warmth, challenge, or accountability in a matter of seconds. In social experiments, people are often more likely to respond, donate, or cooperate when eye contact is involved. Something ancient seems to activate in that moment. Being seen changes behavior. It makes requests harder to dismiss and social norms harder to escape. This may be because eyes carry emotional information so rapidly. A glance can suggest confidence, sincerity, dominance, or need before any reasoning starts. That is why eye contact matters so much in interviews, leadership, sales, interrogation, and performance. It can deepen trust, but it can also intensify influence. A direct gaze turns an abstract interaction into a personal one. Suddenly, the mind is no longer dealing only with words. It is dealing with presence. And presence, when delivered at the right moment, can make agreement feel much more difficult to refuse. Flattery can lower defenses, even when people know it is flattery. Praise has a peculiar power because it does not only change how we see the speaker, it also changes how we feel in our own skin. A compliment can create warmth, lift status, and trigger a small glow of belonging. Once that happens, skepticism often softens. What is remarkable is that this can work even when the praise is obvious. People may know they are being flattered, yet still feel more open toward the person doing it. The emotional effect arrives faster than the critical one. Flattery whispers that you are seen, valued, above average, special. The mind enjoys that message, and enjoyment can spill over into trust. This is why praise appears so often in sales, manipulation, seduction, leadership, and cult recruitment. It is not always about vanity. It is about disarming caution. A person who makes you feel brighter in the moment may gain access to parts of judgment that would otherwise stay guarded. The foot in the door effect turns tiny yeses into bigger ones. Influence often works best in steps. Ask for something large immediately, and people resist. Ask for something small first, and a door begins to open. Once a person has agreed to a minor request, they are more likely to accept a larger related one later. The first yes changes the story they tell about themselves. Now they are the kind of person who supports this cause, helps this person, or cooperates in this situation. The next request feels less like a new decision and more like a continuation of the one already made. That is what makes this effect so elegant and so dangerous. It does not rely on force. It relies on consistency. The mind prefers to see itself as stable across time, so each small agreement can become a stepping stone towards something much bigger. Many manipulative systems begin exactly this way, not with shocking demands, but with harmless, easy, almost forgettable first steps. A small gift can create pressure to give something back. Few social rules are as powerful and as invisible as reciprocity. When someone gives us something, even something tiny, a pressure often appears inside. We feel a need to return the gesture, balance the scales, and prove that we are not takers. This rule helps hold societies together. It builds trust, exchange, and generosity. But it can also be exploited with remarkable precision. A free sample, an unexpected favor, a compliment paired with a token, or a gift handed over before any request has been made can all create subtle obligation. Suddenly saying no feels colder than it should. The request seems harder to refuse because it is no longer standing alone. It is leaning on the social weight of debt. What makes this so effective is that the gift can be small, while the return asked for is much larger. Influence begins with kindness, then quietly collects interest. Urgent countdowns can hijack judgment and shrink critical thinking. A ticking clock changes the mind. Add a countdown, a vanishing timer, or the warning that a chance will disappear in minutes, and thought begins to speed up in ways that are not always wise. Urgency narrows attention. It shifts the brain away from reflection and toward rapid action. In that state, people are more likely to rely on habit, fear of loss, and emotional shortcuts. That is why countdowns are so common in advertising, scams, high-pressure sales, and digital design. The timer does more than measure time. It creates a small psychological emergency. Even when the deadline is artificial, the body responds as if delay itself has become dangerous. Questions feel costly. Caution feels slow. The remarkable thing is how quickly this can override reason. A person may know they dislike being pressured, yet still click, buy, agree, or surrender, simply because time pressure makes hesitation feel more painful than a bad decision. Repeated slogans can bypass reflection by rewarding familiarity over accuracy. A slogan is powerful because it does not ask the mind to stop and think for long. It asks the mind to recognize, repeat, and feel. Once a phrase becomes familiar, it starts to move with less resistance through memory. It feels settled. It feels known. That feeling can become more persuasive than evidence. History is full of short lines that help build loyalty, simplify fear, or divide the world into neat camps of us and them. The more often they were repeated, the more natural they sounded. Soon people were not weighing the statement at all. They were inhabiting it. A slogan can compress a whole worldview into a rhythm the tongue enjoys saying and the mind remembers easily. That is why it can travel farther than a careful explanation. Repetition turns language into a mental path. Once enough people walk that path together, reflection begins to feel slower, stranger, and less rewarding than simply repeating the line. Rhymes can make weak claims sound wiser than they are. There is something almost magical about a sentence that clicks into rhythm. When words rhyme, they feel cleaner, sharper, and somehow more finished. Psychologists have found that people often judge rhyming statements as more truthful or insightful than non-rhyming ones, even when the meaning is no stronger. A line with rhyme seems easier to process, and that ease can be mistaken for wisdom. It feels polished, memorable, and somehow more deserving of trust. This is why proverbs, slogans, and sales lines so often lean on sound rather than substance. The mind enjoys patterns. It rewards them with attention and recall. A weak idea dressed in rhyme can therefore sound older, deeper, and more reliable than it really is. The effect is subtle, which makes it especially fascinating. Sometimes persuasion does not win by offering better logic. Sometimes it wins because the sentence lands with a rhythm that feels like truth before truth is examined. Simple language often persuades more deeply than complicated language. Complex language can impress, but simple language often reaches farther. A message built from clear, familiar words slips into the mind with very little friction. It does not demand much effort to decode, so more energy is left for feeling, agreement, and memory. This is one reason great propagandists, advertisers, and preachers so often avoid complicated phrasing. They are not trying to sound scholarly. They are trying to sound inevitable. A short sentence can feel solid in the mouth and easy in the memory. It can be repeated by anyone, shared by children, and carried into daily life without losing its shape. Complicated language, by contrast, can slow emotion and give the listener time to step back. Simplicity can therefore be a tool of clarity, but also a tool of control. The easiest words are often the hardest to resist because they arrive already shaped for belief, repetition, and emotional force. Confusion can make people more suggestible while they search for clarity. When the mind loses its footing, it becomes hungry for direction. Confusion creates discomfort because human beings want patterns, causes, and coherent stories. In moments of uncertainty, a person may accept explanations they would normally question, simply because any clear answer feels better than standing in fog. This helps explain why contradictory information, overwhelming jargon, or rapidly changing rules can make people easier to influence. Once a person feels mentally tangled, the first confident guide can seem unusually appealing. Some manipulators understand this very well. They flood people with complexity, break ordinary expectations, or create emotional disorientation, then offer a neat interpretation that promises relief. The suggestion enters not only as an idea, but as an exit from confusion. That is what makes this so powerful. The mind is not merely persuaded by the answer itself. It is persuaded by the soothing contrast between chaos and clarity. In a storm of uncertainty, even a poor compass can feel priceless. Exhaustion weakens resistance because the brain wants the easiest answer. A tired mind does not reason the way a rested one does. When energy drops, the brain begins conserving effort. It leans harder on shortcuts, habits, emotional reactions, and whatever answer feels easiest to process. That means long hours, sleep loss, and mental overload can quietly strip away the patience needed for skepticism. A person who would normally question a claim, compare options, or hold a boundary may instead nod, accept, or give in, simply because resistance has become too expensive. This is why fatigue matters so much in interrogation, sales pressure, online scrolling, and high-demand groups. Exhaustion does not just make people slower. It changes the kind of thinking they can access. Nuance fades. Defaults take over. Relief starts to look wiser than truth. The remarkable thing is how ordinary this is. You do not need dramatic coercion to soften judgment. Sometimes all it takes is enough tiredness for the easiest answer to feel like the right one. Loneliness increases vulnerability to grips that promise certainty and belonging. Loneliness is not just sadness. It is a state of deep social hunger, and hunger changes judgment. When people feel cut off from others, they often become more sensitive to invitations that offer identity, warmth, and a place to stand. A group that says, "We see you, we need you, you belong here," can feel almost irresistibly powerful to someone who has gone too long without connection. That is part of why extremist circles, conspiracy communities, and controlling movements so often present themselves as families or awakenings rather than organizations. They do not begin with demands. They begin with recognition. The longing becomes the bait, and certainty becomes the reward. Once a lonely person is emotionally held by a group, ideas that once seemed strange can start to feel sacred because they are tied to connection itself. The mind does not only adopt beliefs, it protects the home those beliefs now represent. In that way, loneliness can become a doorway through which control enters softly. Shame has been used for centuries to police thought and behavior. Shame is one of the oldest tools of social control because it reaches deeper than fear of punishment. It threatens the self. To be shamed is not simply to be told you did something wrong. It is to feel exposed, lowered, and pushed toward the edge of belonging. Communities, religions, families, and states have long understood the power of that feeling. Public humiliation, mocking labels, forced confession, and moral disgrace can all shape behavior without a prison wall in sight. People begin to monitor themselves because they dread the look in other people's eyes. Over time, that gaze can move inward. The person no longer needs an external judge. They carry one within. That is what makes shame so effective and so dangerous. It can discipline thought before thought is spoken. It can shrink curiosity, silence dissent, and train obedience through the terror of social nakedness. A punished body may resist. A shamed identity often polices itself. Guilt can be turned into a leash when forgiveness is tightly controlled. Guilt can be healthy when it helps a person repair harm and return to balance. But in manipulative systems, guilt is often stretched into something far more useful for control. A leader, partner, or institution may keep people feeling perpetually indebted, flawed, or morally behind, then position themselves as the gatekeeper of forgiveness. In that structure, relief becomes conditional. Obedience earns approval. Doubt risks renewed blame. The person is kept chasing a clean slate that never fully arrives. This can happen in abusive relationships, rigid groups, and ideological movements that turn ordinary imperfection into permanent leverage. The controlling force does not need to prove constant wrongdoing. It only needs to keep the target emotionally uncertain enough to keep asking how to make things right. Once that pattern settles in, guilt stops being a moment of conscience and becomes a tether. The person stays close not because they are free, but because release seems to depend on the very hand tightening the leash. Public rituals can bind beliefs to identity more strongly than arguments. Ideas become far more powerful when they are not just understood, but enacted. Public rituals do exactly that. Standing, kneeling, chanting, saluting, singing, repeating vows, wearing symbols, moving in unison. All of these turn belief into behavior. And behavior has a strange power over the mind. Once a person has performed allegiance in front of others, the belief involved can begin to feel more personal, more serious, and harder to question. The body has already participated. The social cost of stepping back has grown. That is why rituals appear in religion, politics, schools, armies, and movements of every kind. They do more than express values. They anchor them in memory, emotion, and identity. A speech can be forgotten. A ritual felt in the body often lingers. It becomes a scene the mind returns to when asking, "Who am I, and where do I belong?" Belief deepens when it is not only heard, but lived in public. Chants and repetition can synchronize bodies, moods, and shared conviction. There is a reason chants echo through stadiums, marches, temples, and rallies. Repeated together, they do more than carry words. They bring breathing into rhythm, align attention, and create the powerful sensation of many people becoming one moving thing. A chant is simple on purpose. It does not need subtlety. It needs pulse, return, and a shape the body can join without effort. Once that happens, emotion begins to spread through timing itself. Excitement rises faster. Doubt gets quieter. The individual starts feeling carried by a force larger than private thought. Neuroscience suggests that synchronized action can strengthen bonding and trust, which helps explain why repetition in groups feels so intoxicating. The mind is not merely hearing agreement, it is physically participating in it. That can be inspiring, beautiful, and dangerous all at once. Shared rhythm can create solidarity, but it can also make conviction feel stronger than it really is, simply because so many bodies are moving together. Crowds can make individuals act unlike the person they think they are. A crowd is not just many people standing close together. It is a change in psychological weather. Inside a crowd, emotion moves differently. Attention narrows toward the group. Signals amplify. A shout becomes permission. A surge becomes momentum. Actions that would feel unthinkable alone can begin to feel natural when echoed by hundreds of others. This is why crowds can produce astonishing generosity, courage, panic, violence, or devotion in a matter of minutes. The individual self does not vanish, but it becomes less dominant. People start borrowing cues from the mass around them. They react faster, reflect less, and feel carried by something larger than personal choice. History offers endless scenes of this transformation, from ecstatic gatherings to destructive mobs. What makes it so fascinating is how ordinary the participants often are before and after. The crowd does not reveal a secret monster hiding inside everyone. It reveals how radically context can reshape behavior when many minds lock into one emotional current. De-individuation can lower restraint when people feel hidden inside a group. When people feel anonymous, something important can loosen. Psychologists call this de-individuation, the state in which personal identity and accountability fade under the cover of a group, costume, darkness, or mask. In that condition, restraint often weakens. A person may shout more cruelly, act more recklessly, or follow impulses they would usually check. This helps explain why riots, online pylons, masked violence, and even some forms of hazing can escalate so quickly. The individual no longer feels fully visible as a single moral self. Instead, they feel dissolved into a larger body. Responsibility becomes blurry. Consequences feel shared or distant. That does not automatically make people violent. In some settings, it can also increase joy, play, or freedom. But it does change the balance between conscience and impulse. Once the sense of being distinctly seen begins to fade, behavior can slide in directions that surprise even the person acting. Hiddenness can become a strange kind of permission. Propaganda works best when it feels familiar, moral, and emotionally simple. The most effective propaganda rarely announces itself as propaganda. It arrives dressed as common sense, duty, compassion, survival, or pride. It wraps itself in values people already respect and stories they already understand. That is why it works best when it feels familiar and morally clean. Instead of inviting complexity, it offers a world with bright lines and easy villains. It reduces confusion by turning history into a simple drama of threat and virtue. Once that frame takes hold, people do not feel manipulated. They feel enlightened. They feel that the truth has finally been made plain. Emotional simplicity is the key. If a message can make fear, loyalty, anger, and righteousness travel together, it becomes much easier to repeat and defend. Propaganda does not need to be elegant. It needs to feel natural enough to live inside ordinary speech. When that happens, people may start carrying it for free, believing they are speaking for themselves while the script speaks through them. Censorship shapes minds not only by hiding facts, but alternatives. Censorship is often imagined as a wall placed around forbidden information. But its deeper power lies elsewhere. It narrows what people can imagine. When certain ideas, histories, questions, or ways of speaking are removed from public life, the loss is not only factual, it is conceptual. People begin living inside a smaller map of reality. Possibilities that were never voiced start to feel impossible on their own. A censored society does not simply know less. It thinks within tighter boundaries. That is why suppression can be so effective, even when everyone suspects it is happening. If alternative interpretations never circulate widely enough to become emotionally real, the official version begins to feel like the only one that exists. Silence itself becomes part of persuasion. Over time, people may stop asking certain questions not because they were answered, but because the language and examples needed to form them have gradually disappeared. What cannot be publicly imagined is harder to privately believe. Totalitarian systems often control language before they control everything else. Before power controls every movement, it often tries to control the words used to describe movement. Language matters because it shapes perception at the most basic level. If a government can redefine loyalty, treason, purity, danger, or truth, it can begin changing what people think they are seeing. Totalitarian systems understand this with chilling precision. They flood public life with slogans, official terms, and carefully framed labels that turn political goals into moral facts. Opponents become parasites, traitors, or enemies of the people. Surveillance becomes safety. Obedience becomes virtue. Once language is bent far enough, cruelty can start sounding necessary, and dissent can start sounding wicked. The remarkable part is that this transformation often begins long before total control is complete. Words prepare the ground. They teach the public how to sort reality before harsher mechanisms arrive. By the time force becomes obvious, many minds have already been organized by a vocabulary that makes the force seem justified. Renaming things can quietly change what people think is possible. A new name can do more than describe. It can redirect feeling, expectation, and moral judgment. Call civilians collateral damage, and distance opens. Call torture, enhanced interrogation, and brutality seems to move into a blur. Call exploitation and opportunity, and the mind begins processing the same reality through a softer frame. Renaming works because words are not neutral labels stuck onto a fixed world. They help organize the world in the first place. A changed name can make an action feel technical instead of violent, temporary instead of permanent, or necessary instead of outrageous. This is one reason political language is fought over so fiercely. Whoever names the situation first often gains a hidden advantage. They choose the emotional doorway through which everyone else must enter. Once a label spreads widely enough, it stops sounding like a choice and starts sounding like reality. By that point, the new name may already be changing what people believe can be accepted, resisted, or imagined. Euphemisms can smuggle cruelty into speech without sounding cruel at all. One of the most unsettling powers in language is the ability to hide violence behind softness. Euphemisms do exactly that. They take acts that would shock the conscience if plainly named, and wrap them in terms that feel tidy, procedural, or harmless. People are not fired, they are let go. Civilians are not killed, losses are incurred. A people are not erased, they are relocated. Each phrase removes blood, pain, and faces from the picture. The mind is given a cleaner object to hold. That matters enormously because moral revulsion often depends on vividness. Strip away the human reality and resistance can weaken. Bureaucracies, militaries, companies, and abusive individuals all use this technique because softened language lowers emotional friction. It creates distance where there should be nearness. The act has not changed, but the listener's contact with it has. Cruelty travels farther when speech carries it in padded gloves instead of bare hands. Conspiracy thinking can offer comforting control inside a chaotic world. A conspiracy theory can be frightening, but it can also be strangely comforting. In a chaotic world, randomness is hard to bear. Accidents, uncertainty, and large systems beyond personal control can leave people feeling small and exposed. Conspiracy thinking offers an alternative. It says, there is a hidden pattern. Someone is steering events. Nothing is meaningless. Even terrible outcomes become easier to place because they now belong to an intentional design. That sense of secret order can feel more manageable than true uncertainty. It also offers status. The believer is no longer confused or powerless. They are awake, initiated, among the few who really see. This combination of control, meaning, and belonging makes conspiracy thinking emotionally attractive even when the claims are wild. The theory is doing more than explaining events. It is soothing anxiety and repairing wounded certainty. That is why confronting such beliefs with bare facts alone often fails. The belief is not only intellectual, it is emotional shelter. Certainty can feel so good that doubt starts to feel dangerous. Doubt is often praised as a sign of intelligence, but emotionally it can be exhausting. To doubt is to remain open, unresolved, and exposed to the possibility of being wrong. Certainty offers relief from all of that. It simplifies the world. It tells you where to stand, who to trust, and what everything means. That is why certainty can become intoxicating. Once people experience the comfort of a complete answer, ambiguity begins to feel less like freedom and more like threat. Questions become irritating. Nuance feels slippery. Anyone introducing complexity can seem like an enemy of clarity itself. This is one of the deepest pathways into rigid belief. the person is not only attached to an idea, they are attached to the emotional calm the idea provides. To threaten the belief is therefore to threaten stability, identity, and peace. In that state, doubt no longer feels like healthy thinking. It feels like danger pressing at the door. Love bombing can overwhelm suspicion by flooding a person with belonging. At the beginning of some manipulative relationships, the target is not threatened or pressured. They are adored. Attention arrives in waves. Compliments feel endless. Messages come constantly. The person is told they are rare, special, deeply understood, perhaps unlike anyone the group or leader has ever met. This intensity can feel magical because it answers very old human needs all at once. To be seen, wanted, admired, and welcomed so completely can create a powerful emotional rush. Suspicion struggles to survive in that kind of warmth. The mind begins attaching safety to the source of the affection. Later, when demands, criticism, or control appear, the target often does not compare the new behavior to ordinary reality. They compare it to that dazzling beginning and hope to earn it back. That is why love bombing is so effective. It does not begin by taking freedom away. It begins by making surrender feel like coming home. Isolation from outsiders can make extreme beliefs feel completely ordinary. Beliefs do not exist in a vacuum. They are measured against the voices, habits, and reactions surrounding them. Remove outside contact, and that measuring system begins to collapse. A person who hears only one set of explanations, one moral vocabulary, and one approved version of events, can slowly lose the sense that alternatives ever felt real. Ideas that would have sounded absurd in ordinary life begin to feel stable because no living contrast remains close at hand. This is why controlling groups so often discourage outside friendships, independent media, skeptical relatives, or private time for reflection. Isolation does more than prevent criticism. It changes the emotional climate in which belief is judged. Once everyone around you treats the extreme as normal, normal starts feeling distant and strange. The remarkable part is how gradual this can be. People rarely feel the moment their frame of reference shifts. They simply wake one day inside a world that no longer feels extreme at all. Sleep deprivation has been used to break down resistance and identity. Take away sleep, and the mind does not merely become tired. It starts coming apart at the edges. Attention fragments. Emotions grow unstable. Memory slips. Time feels strange. Thoughts become harder to organize, and the ability to challenge what is happening weakens fast. This is why sleep deprivation has been used in coercive settings for so long. A sleepless person becomes easier to confuse, easier to pressure, and more desperate for relief than for truth. Even strong personalities can begin agreeing, confessing, or collapsing, simply because the body is pleading for rest. What makes this so disturbing is that sleep is not a luxury. It is one of the foundations of a stable self. Remove enough of it, and identity itself can feel less solid. Judgment softens, boundaries blur. The person becomes more dependent on whoever controls the conditions of relief. Exhaustion does not just weaken resistance. It can hollow out the very structure resistance depends on. Interrogators know unpredictability can destabilize the mind faster than force. A mind under pressure tries to adapt. If the rules are stable, people can brace, plan, and preserve some inner structure. Unpredictability destroys that advantage. When rewards and punishments arrive without pattern, when tone shifts suddenly from kindness to threat, when sleep, noise, questions, and timing become impossible to anticipate, the nervous system struggles to settle. Anywhere. The person stops conserving strength for a clear danger because danger could appear at any moment. That constant uncertainty can be more destabilizing than direct force. It keeps the body on alert and makes relief feel as important as truth. Under those conditions, people may become eager to say what they think the interrogator wants, not because the answer is real, but because a stable pattern seems like survival. This is why unpredictability matters so much in coercion. It turns the environment itself into a weapon. The person is not only resisting another human being, they are resisting a world that no longer makes sense. Learned helplessness can trap people into surrendering, even when escape exists. One of the bleakest discoveries in psychology is that repeated powerlessness can teach a creature to stop trying, even after freedom becomes possible. When animals or people experience enough uncontrollable pain, failure, or punishment, they may begin acting as though nothing they do matters. Later, even when a path out appears, they often fail to take it. The lesson has sunk too deep. Effort feels pointless before it begins. In human life, this can happen in abusive homes, rigid institutions, chronic poverty, bullying, and relationships where every attempt to resist is mocked or crushed. Over time, helplessness becomes internal. The prison moves inward. That is what makes it so tragic. The door may be open, yet the person no longer experiences escape as real. They have learned not only fear, but futility. Control becomes strongest when it no longer needs chains, because the mind itself has been trained to believe that action will change nothing. Trauma can make authority feel safer than uncertainty, even when harmful. After trauma, the nervous system often stops asking what is truly good and starts asking what feels predictable. A harsh authority can sometimes answer that need better than freedom can. Rules may be rigid. The leader may be cruel. The environment may even be damaging. Yet if it offers structure, certainty, and a clear script for survival, it can feel safer than open uncertainty. This helps explain why some traumatized people are drawn toward controlling partners, strict ideologies, or powerful figures who promise order. The attraction is not foolishness. It is adaptation. Chaos once hurt them, so control begins to resemble protection. The tragic part is that this can create deep loyalty to systems that do real harm. The body mistakes familiar tension for safety because familiar tension feels navigable. Trauma can therefore reshape the meaning of refuge itself. Sometimes the mind does not run toward kindness. It runs toward whatever seems least unpredictable in a world that once shattered trust. Memory under stress becomes vivid in feeling, but weaker in detail. Stress can make experience feel unforgettable, while quietly damaging the very details people later try to recall. During intense fear, the brain prioritizes survival. It locks onto threat, emotion, and urgent action. That means the core feeling of the moment may burn in with astonishing force, while peripheral facts such as timing, sequence, faces, or exact words become less stable. This is why people under stress can sincerely remember terror and still misremember important details around it. They are not necessarily lying. They are recalling an experience encoded under emergency conditions. The emotional truth remains bright, but the informational edges may blur. This matters enormously in witness testimony, conflict, and personal storytelling. We often assume that intensity guarantees accuracy. In reality, intensity can narrow the beam. The memory may come back with a pounding heart and absolute conviction, yet still contain gaps, distortions, or rearranged fragments because the brain was busy keeping the body alive. Confidence can be manufactured by posture, praise, and social reinforcement. Confidence feels like a deep inner resource, but it is often built from outside signals that the mind slowly absorbs. Stand differently and you may begin feeling differently. Be praised repeatedly, and hesitation can shrink. Receive approving smiles, quick agreement, and visible respect from others. And a person who once doubted themselves may start sounding certain, even authoritative. This does not mean confidence is fake. It means confidence is socially shaped far more than people imagine. Leaders, coaches, manipulators, and movements all understand this in different ways. They can create an atmosphere in which a person feels stronger, bolder, and more decisive, simply because the environment keeps reflecting competence back at them. The body joins in. Voice steadies. Movements sharpen. Soon, the confidence feels internal because it has become embodied. That is what makes it so fascinating. Certainty can be grown through posture, praise, and response, until it feels like personality, even though social conditions helped build it from the ground up. Charisma often works by making listeners feel vividly seen and chosen. Charisma is often mistaken for sheer confidence, but its deeper power lies somewhere else. The most magnetic people do not simply project force. They create the feeling of special recognition. In their presence, listeners may feel unusually visible, as though the speaker has reached through the crowd and understood something private within them. A glance lingers. A phrase seems tailored. A story feels like it was told for you alone. That experience can be electrifying because human beings ache to be known. Once that feeling takes hold, skepticism often softens. The charismatic figure no longer seems like just another voice offering ideas. They seem like the rare person who truly sees you. This is why charisma can be so powerful in religion, politics, seduction, and cult leadership. It wraps influence in intimacy. People do not merely admire the speaker. They feel personally invited into meaning. And once someone feels chosen, they may follow far farther than reason alone would have carried them. Storytelling can bypass resistance because the brain loves meaning before evidence. A direct argument invites comparison, objection, and scrutiny. A story often slips past those defenses. Once a narrative begins, the mind starts searching for characters, motives, tension, and resolution. It wants to know what happens next. That hunger for meaning can make people more open to ideas embedded inside the tale. A well-told story does not feel like instruction. It feels like discovery. While listeners follow the emotional path, their guard may lower because they are not busy debating each claim. They are inhabiting the world the story creates. This is why stories shape religion, politics, advertising, and identity so powerfully. They do not only communicate information. They organize reality into something the heart can travel through. A fact may be forgotten. A story can become part of how a person sees themselves and others. Influence grows stronger when it arrives not as a command or thesis, but as a meaning shaped like a journey. Humor can lower defenses and slip ideas past skepticism. Laughter changes the social atmosphere in an instant. It relaxes tension, creates bonding, and signals that the moment is safe enough to enjoy. In that softened state, people often become more open to whatever comes next. That is why humor can be such a subtle instrument of influence. A joke can introduce an insult, stereotype, political claim, or bold suggestion in a form that feels lighter and easier to accept. If challenged, the speaker can retreat behind playfulness. If embraced, the idea has already entered under cover of amusement. Humor also rewards belonging. Laughing together makes people feel aligned, which means the joke is not only about content. It is about who is inside the circle and who is outside it. This gives humor unusual power in propaganda, recruitment, online culture, and social control. Something framed as funny can travel much farther than the same idea stated seriously, because the mind is busy enjoying the moment instead of guarding the gate. Anger spreads through groups faster than calm, careful reasoning. Anger is contagious because it is built for speed. When one person shows outrage, others pick up the signal quickly through tone, expression, posture, and shared threat. The body responds before careful thought has time to catch up. Heart rate rises. Attention narrows. The group begins orienting toward an enemy, an insult, or a crisis. Calm reasoning moves more slowly because it asks for pause, context, and uncertainty. Anger offers something simpler. It tells people what matters, who is to blame, and how they should feel right now. That clarity makes it socially efficient. In meetings, crowds, comment sections, and political movements, a burst of anger can therefore spread with startling force. Once it catches, even neutral people may join because emotion itself becomes evidence that something serious is happening. This is why anger is such a useful tool for manipulation. It does not need every person to think alike. It only needs enough bodies to ignite so the mood outruns reflection. Moral outrage can become addictive when identity is tied to being right. There is a special charge that comes from feeling not merely angry, but righteous. Moral outrage combines emotion with virtue. It tells the person that their fury is not just understandable, but noble. That can create a powerful inner reward. The person feels energized, justified, and elevated above the wrongdoer. In environments where status comes from signaling purity or ideological commitment, outrage can become even more reinforcing. It earns attention, approval, and belonging. Over time, some people begin seeking situations that let them experience that rush again. Conflict becomes part of identity. Being right becomes something felt in the body, almost like a stimulant. This is what makes moral outrage so dangerous in group settings. It can stop being a response to genuine wrong and become a recurring emotional habit. The cause may still sound noble, yet the nervous system begins craving the feeling itself. At that point, indignation can start driving behavior more than principle does. People copy emotional states from others more than they realize. Human beings are constantly tuning themselves to one another in small, almost invisible ways. A tense room can tighten your chest before anyone has explained why. A smiling face can brighten your own mood without permission. A bored group can drain excitement from a person who arrived energized. This happens because emotion is social. We read tone, breathing, posture, facial movement, and rhythm automatically. Then our own nervous systems begin adjusting in response. Often we mistake the result for a private feeling that arose from nowhere. In truth, part of it may have been borrowed. This is one reason moods can shift so dramatically in workplaces, families, crowds, and online spaces. Emotional states move through networks of people like weather moving across land. That process is useful for connection, but it also creates a vulnerability. A manipulative person does not always need to change your thoughts directly. Sometimes shaping the emotional atmosphere is enough to start changing you from the outside in. Mirror neurons helped inspire theories about how minds influence minds. When scientists discovered neurons in monkeys that fired both when an action was performed and when that same action was observed, the findings sparked enormous excitement. These mirror neurons seem to hint at a built-in bridge between seeing and doing, between another creature's movement and your own inner simulation of it. The idea quickly spread into broader theories about empathy, imitation, learning, and the way minds may resonate with one another. Some claims became exaggerated, and the science is more complicated than the early headlines suggested. Even so, the deeper fascination remains. Human beings are not detached observers of each other. We often model what we see from the inside. A yawn spreads. A wince makes you flinch. A graceful movement can be felt before it is copied. The brain appears prepared to echo the actions of others in subtle ways. That echo may help explain why influence can sometimes feel immediate, bodily, and strangely intimate. Smiles, nods, and timing can train behavior without a single command. Not all control arrives through direct instruction. Much of human behavior is shaped through tiny signals that reward one action and cool another. A smile at the right moment can encourage someone to keep talking. A quick nod can strengthen confidence. Delayed attention can make a person doubt themselves. Over time, these small responses begin functioning like a training system. People lean toward what earns warmth and away from what brings silence, tension, or subtle withdrawal. Parents do this. Teachers do it. Friends do it. Skilled manipulators do it exceptionally well. The remarkable part is how often the person being shaped never notices the pattern. They simply start feeling more natural in some behaviors and less natural in others. Yet that feeling has often been socially sculpted. Influence does not always need speeches, threats, or rules. Sometimes it lives in timing, expression, and reaction, guiding behavior through 1,000 small moments that quietly teach the mind what belongs. Intermittent rewards can hook the brain more strongly than constant ones. A reward given every time is pleasant. A reward given unpredictably can become irresistible. This is one of the strangest features of learning. When praise, affection, wins, or attention arrive on an uncertain schedule, the brain often becomes more engaged, not less. It starts chasing the next payoff with heightened focus because the uncertainty itself generates tension and anticipation. The person does not know when the reward is coming, so they keep returning, checking, hoping, and trying again. This pattern appears in gambling, unstable relationships, social media, gaming, and many manipulative systems. A partner who is warm one day and cold the next can create stronger attachment than steady kindness. The same is true of many reward loops in modern technology. Uncertainty sharpens pursuit. That is what makes intermittent rewards so powerful. The mind becomes trapped not only by pleasure, but by the suspense surrounding pleasure. It keeps reaching because the next moment might finally deliver the thing it wants. Slot machines exploit learning systems built for survival, not casinos. Slot machines are brilliant at hijacking ancient brain systems that evolved for entirely different purposes. In nature, uncertain rewards often signaled opportunity. Search a little longer, and there might be food, shelter, or a social advantage waiting. That persistence helped animals survive. A slot machine takes the same learning machinery and turns it against the player. Lights flash. Sounds celebrate near wins. Rewards arrive unpredictably. Small losses are quickly followed by the possibility of a reversal. The machine teaches the brain to stay engaged through suspense, not success. Even near misses can stimulate continued play because they feel like being close, though mathematically they mean nothing special. This is why gambling can grip people so deeply. The game is not simply taking money. It is training attention, hope, and persistence through a carefully engineered loop. A device built for leisure ends up tapping systems once meant to keep creatures searching for life itself. Notifications are designed to tug attention with tiny bursts of uncertainty. A notification is rarely just information. It is a carefully timed interruption wrapped in mystery. Someone might have liked something. Someone might have replied. Something might require you right now. That little uncertainty is the hook. Because the mind does not yet know whether the alert carries praise, novelty, threat, or belonging, attention is pulled toward it with surprising force. The design is often deliberate. Bright badges, sounds, vibrations, and intermittent timing all work together to make checking feel urgent and hard to postpone. What makes this so powerful is that the interruption is small. It seems harmless, yet repeated often enough, it can fracture concentration and train the brain into a state of constant readiness for outside input. The device begins shaping when thought starts, stops, and turns. A person may feel they are freely checking in, while their attention is being repeatedly summoned by tiny engineered questions that the nervous system hates leaving unanswered. Recommendation systems can trap thought inside invisible tunnels of repetition. A recommendation system does not need to command your mind. It only needs to keep placing the same kind of thing in your path. Watch one provocative clip, one partisan rant, one fear-soaked theory, and the system may respond by offering more of the same. At first, this feels like convenience, as though the machine simply understands your taste. But over time, repetition begins narrowing the world. The same themes return. The same emotional cues recur. The same style of explanation starts feeling normal, while alternative views appear less often or vanish entirely. This can create an invisible tunnel of thought where the person still feels free, yet keeps meeting the same ideas from slightly different angles. The effect is powerful because it does not feel like censorship. It feels like discovery. A mind fed the same pattern again and again may eventually mistake algorithmic repetition for independent confirmation, and private opinion for the natural shape of reality itself. Deepfakes threaten trust by making false sights feel undeniably real. For most of human history, seeing carried enormous authority. A witness who said, "I saw it with my own eyes," was offering one of the strongest forms of proof ordinary life could provide. Deepfakes threaten that ancient instinct. With modern tools, a face can be made to speak words it never said. A person can appear in a place they never visited. Expressions, lip movements, and voice patterns can be stitched together so convincingly that the result feels immediately real. That is what makes deepfakes so dangerous. They do not argue with the mind. They bypass straight to the senses. Even when people know manipulation is possible, the visual experience still lands with force because the brain is built to trust richly detailed perception. The damage spreads in two directions at once. False material can be believed, and genuine material can be doubted. Once that happens, trust itself becomes unstable, and reality starts losing one of its oldest anchors. Personalized feeds can create separate realities for people sharing one world. Two people can wake up in the same city, live under the same government, and breathe the same weather, yet spend the day inside entirely different informational worlds. Personalized feeds make that possible. One person sees fear, scandal, and conflict. Another sees optimism, entertainment, and reassurance. A third is surrounded by grievance, conspiracy, and moral emergency. Each feed becomes a tailored reality stream, shaped by prior clicks, watch time, location, and hidden predictions about what will keep attention engaged. The result is not just difference of opinion. It is difference of world. Facts arrive in different orders, with different emotional frames, and sometimes do not arrive at all. This makes mutual understanding much harder because disagreement no longer begins from a shared scene. People are trying to compare maps drawn from separate planets. What is astonishing is how quiet this process is. There is no loud announcement that your reality has been customized. It simply unfolds around you, one scroll at a time. Outrage is profitable because it keeps attention awake and returning. Few mental states keep people locked in as effectively as outrage. It sharpens focus, raises emotion, and creates the powerful sense that something urgent must be watched, shared, or answered right now. For platforms, publishers, and personalities competing for attention, that makes outrage incredibly valuable. Calm understanding often leads to closure. Outrage leads to return. The person checks for updates, arguments, confirmations, and new targets. They come back not because they feel good, but because the emotional loop has remained open. Anger also encourages sharing, since moral urgency makes people want witnesses. A scandal, insult, or inflammatory clip can therefore travel much farther than something balanced and careful. This does not mean every expression of outrage is fake or cynical. Many are sincere. But systems built to reward engagement do not care much whether the feeling is noble. They care that it is strong, repeatable, and hard to leave. In that economy, indignation becomes excellent fuel. The illusion of choice can control behavior while preserving the feeling of freedom. One of the cleverest forms of influence does not remove choice. It stages it. A person may be offered options that look independent, while all of them quietly lead toward the same outcome. A child is asked whether to do homework now or in 10 minutes, not whether to refuse. A customer chooses between premium plans, while the simplest option is hidden or degraded. A workplace invites feedback only inside narrow, harmless boundaries. The result is powerful, because people usually resist overt control more than guided autonomy. If the person feels they chose the path themselves, the decision sits more comfortably in memory. They defend it, identify with it, and often fail to notice how constrained it really was. This technique works because freedom is not just about having options. It is about having meaningful alternatives. Once those alternatives are shaped in advance, behavior can be directed with surprising precision, while the person continues feeling independent, voluntary, and entirely self-directed. Nudges can steer decisions without bans, orders, or obvious pressure. A nudge is influence at its softest, and for that reason, sometimes at its most fascinating. Nothing is forbidden. No one is shouted at. Yet the environment is arranged so that one choice becomes easier, more visible, or more natural than another. Put healthy food at eye level, and people take more of it. Send a reminder that most neighbors pay taxes on time, and compliance can rise. Make stairs bright and attractive, and more people climb them. These are small changes, but they reveal something profound. Human choice is deeply shaped by context. We do not decide in empty space. We decide inside layouts, defaults, timings, and social hints that push gently on attention and behavior. Nudges can be used for good, but they also raise difficult questions. When does guidance become manipulation? If behavior can be steered without awareness, the line between helping people choose and quietly choosing for them begins to blur. Defaults shape behavior powerfully because many people never change them. One of the strongest forms of influence can be hidden inside a setting people barely notice. The default option matters because many human beings accept what is already in place. They may be busy, unsure, indifferent, or simply assume the preset choice carries some kind of recommendation. That means a box already ticked, a privacy setting already open, or a subscription already renewing can shape behavior on a massive scale. Organ donation rates, retirement savings, app permissions, and countless everyday decisions have all been shown to shift dramatically depending on what happens by default. This is astonishing because nothing dramatic is happening on the surface. People are not persuaded with speeches. They are guided by inertia. The preset becomes the path of least resistance, and the path of least resistance often becomes the world people live in. Whoever controls the default often controls the outcome, not by argument, but by quietly deciding what happens when nobody intervenes. Architecture can guide movement, mood, and obedience without speaking. A building can influence behavior long before anyone inside says a word. Narrow corridors can create order. High ceilings can inspire awe or smallness. Heavy doors, waiting rooms, raised platforms, and long approach paths can all signal rank, seriousness, and control. Religious spaces, courtrooms, schools, palaces, and prisons have long used architecture not only for function, but for psychological effect. The body reads space quickly. It notices who stands above, who waits below, why the gaze is drawn, and how easy it feels to linger, move, or speak. A room can invite conversation or suppress it. It can soothe, intimidate, isolate, or direct without giving a single verbal command. That is what makes architecture such a subtle instrument of mind shaping. It works through atmosphere, posture, and path. By the time a person forms an opinion about a place, the place may already have formed part of their opinion about themselves, their role, and what behavior belongs there. Bright lights and mirrored spaces can increase self-awareness and restraint. People behave differently when they feel visible, and visibility can be created by the environment itself. Bright light exposes. Mirrors return the self to the self. Together, they can increase self-awareness in surprisingly powerful ways. A person entering a well-lit, reflective space may become more conscious of posture, appearance, and conduct without ever deciding to do so. That heightened self-monitoring can lead to more restraint, more tidiness, and stronger conformity to social norms. Studies have shown that even subtle cues of being watched or of seeing one's own reflection can alter honesty and self-control. The effect is fascinating because it does not rely on punishment. It relies on making the self harder to ignore. In a dim, hidden setting, impulse may loosen. In a bright, mirrored one, the mind is gently returned to reputation, appearance, and internal standards. The room itself becomes a kind of silent witness, and behavior shifts under its gaze. Background sense can alter spending, trust, and perceived comfort. Smell is one of the fastest routes into emotion because it reaches deep brain systems linked with memory and feeling. That makes scent a remarkably quiet tool of influence. A pleasant fragrance in a hotel lobby can make the space seem cleaner and more luxurious. A warm bakery smell can increase appetite and dwell time. Certain subtle scents in shops have been linked with changes in mood, pace, spending, and even how trustworthy a place feels. The person often has no idea the smell is shaping judgment. They simply report that the environment felt welcoming, expensive, calming, or alive. What makes this so interesting is that scent does not present itself as an argument. It works beneath the level where people expect persuasion to happen. A room can change how safe or desirable something feels before the conscious mind has begun explaining why. The nose opens a door, and the rest of the mind walks through after it. Temperature can change social judgments more than people expect. Warmth and cold do not stay neatly in the body. They can spill into social judgment in ways that feel almost strange once you notice them. Physical warmth has been linked in some experiments to greater feelings of closeness, generosity, and interpersonal warmth itself. Cold, by contrast, can sometimes make situations feel harsher, more distant, or less inviting. The effect is not absolute, and human life is more complicated than a thermometer. Still, the pattern is revealing. The brain does not process physical sensation and social meaning as entirely separate worlds. It often mixes them. Hold something warm, and another person may seem a little friendlier. Sit in discomfort, and the room may feel less forgiving. This matters because judgments that seem purely mental may be partly embodied. We like to imagine our opinions emerge from reason alone. Yet the state of the body can quietly color how open, trusting, or guarded the mind becomes in the moment. Hunger makes impulsive choices more likely across far more than food. Hunger does not only change what people want to eat, it changes how the mind handles urgency, patience, and reward. When the body is low on fuel, immediate payoff can start looking more attractive across many kinds of decisions. People may become more impulsive, more irritable, and more drawn toward quick solutions, even in areas with nothing to do with meals. This makes sense from an evolutionary view. A hungry organism should care more about rapid gain than distant subtlety. Yet in modern life, that ancient logic can leak into shopping, conflict, negotiation, and self-control. A person deciding while hungry may overreact, overspend, or agree too quickly simply because the body has lowered its tolerance for delay. What is fascinating is how invisible this can feel. The person thinks they're making a clean, rational choice, while physiology has already tilted the field. Sometimes the mind is not weak. It is just trying to decide while running low. Pain can narrow thought until relief feels more persuasive than truth. Pain reorganizes the mind around itself. Whether it is physical pain, intense discomfort, or sustained distress, attention begins collapsing inward toward one urgent priority: make this stop. That narrowing is deeply human and often necessary, but it also creates a vulnerability. When relief becomes the dominant goal, people may accept explanations, promises, or commands they would normally question. A patient in agony may trust too quickly. A person under physical discomfort may confess, agree, or comply just to shorten the experience. Pain changes the economy of thought. Long-term reasoning becomes harder. Moral complexity becomes less vivid. Immediate escape begins to outweigh careful truth. This is why pain has such a long history in coercion, medicine, ritual, and manipulation. It does not need to erase the mind. It only needs to crowd the mind. Once suffering fills enough of consciousness, almost anything associated with relief can begin to look authoritative, believable, and worth obeying. The body often decides first, then the mind invents a reason. People usually experience themselves as thinkers who weigh evidence and then choose. Much of the time, the process may run in the opposite direction. The body reacts first. A face feels trustworthy. A tone feels wrong. A room feels unsafe. A product feels premium. Those rapid judgments can arise from posture, tension, gut sensation, facial recognition, hormonal state, and countless signals below awareness. Only afterward does the conscious mind begin stitching together a narrative that sounds deliberate and sensible. This is one reason explanations for choices can be so persuasive and yet incomplete. The reason given may be real, but it may not be the whole cause. The body had already leaned. The mind simply arrived in time to author the story. This is fascinating because it reveals how much of human judgment is embodied before it becomes verbal. We do not always reason our way into decisions. Sometimes we feel our way there first, then describe the route afterward. Split-second impressions can guide choices long before reflection begins. The human mind can form startlingly fast impressions from a face, a voice, a posture, or a scene. In a fraction of a second, people begin judging confidence, warmth, competence, threat, status, or sincerity. These instant readings are not always fair, and they are not always accurate, but they can be powerful enough to shape everything that follows. An interview, a date, a trial, a classroom, a political debate, all can be tilted by those first moments before thoughtful analysis has really begun. Later information is often filtered through that opening impression. which means the start of an interaction may quietly influence the end. What makes this so remarkable is that people usually feel these judgments as natural rather than rapid. They do not think, "I made a lightning-fast guess." They think, "I just had a sense." That sense can guide trust, suspicion, and preference long before evidence has had a fair chance to take its seat. People can defend beliefs more fiercely after seeing contradictory evidence. Contradiction does not always weaken belief. Sometimes it hardens it. When people encounter evidence that threatens an important conviction, the result can be a defensive surge rather than an open reconsideration. They search for flaws in the challenge, reinterpret the facts, or cling more tightly to the original idea precisely because it now feels under attack. This reaction is especially strong when the belief is tied to identity, morality, or group belonging. The threat is no longer just intellectual. It feels personal. In that state, the mind may treat contradiction as proof that enemies are circling and loyalty is required. History and daily life both offer examples of this pattern. Failed prophecies have sometimes strengthened cults instead of dissolving them. Debates have pushed people deeper into positions they already held. The remarkable part is that belief can become more intense in the presence of disconfirming evidence, not because the evidence was weak, but because the self felt cornered. The backfire effect is rarer than rumored, but motivated reasoning is real. For a while, people loved the idea that presenting facts to someone could make them believe the opposite more strongly. That dramatic picture, known as the backfire effect, turned out to be less common than many assumed. Human beings do not automatically become more mistaken every time they hear a correction. Yet the deeper phenomenon remains very real. People reason in motivated ways. They are more welcoming to information that flatters their side, more suspicious of evidence that threatens it, and more creative in defending views they want to keep. This is less theatrical than the backfire story, but in some ways more important. The mind is not a neutral courtroom where all evidence receives equal treatment. It is often a loyal advocate protecting values, identities, and emotional investments already in place. That means truth can still struggle to enter, not because facts always reverse belief, but because belief has hidden attorneys working constantly in its defense. Once identity fuses with belief, facts can feel like personal attacks. A belief changes character when it stops being something a person holds and becomes something they are. At that point, disagreement no longer feels like an exchange of ideas. It feels like an assault on selfhood. This is why arguments about politics, religion, morality, or belonging can become so emotionally explosive. The facts involved may matter, but beneath them lies a deeper question. What kind of person am I if this belief falls? Once identity fuses with conviction, evidence starts arriving with emotional heat. A challenge can feel humiliating, disorienting, or socially dangerous, even if it is calmly delivered. The person may fight back not because the facts were weak, but because the stakes felt existential. This fusion is one of the most powerful engines of mental rigidity. It turns revision into loss and doubt into betrayal. In that state, the mind protects belief the way the body protects skin, as a boundary whose injury feels immediate and personal. Memory is reconstructed each time, making it easier to reshape. Memory is often imagined as a stored object that can be taken down unchanged whenever needed. In reality, remembering is more like rebuilding. Each time a memory is recalled, the brain reassembles it from traces, emotions, associations, and later knowledge. During that process, the memory becomes briefly open to change before being stored again. New details can slip in. Old emphasis can fade. Emotional tone can shift. This makes memory both powerful and vulnerable. It can adapt, heal, and integrate. But it can also be revised by repetition, suggestion, conversation, and imagination. A story told often enough may stop reflecting the original event and start reflecting the retellings. What makes this so astonishing is that the person usually experiences the result as direct access to the past. They do not feel the reconstruction. They feel certainty. Yet every act of remembering is also an act of editing, and the past we carry can slowly change each time we bring it back into the light. Eyewitness certainty can be powerful, persuasive, and completely wrong. There are few things more convincing than a confident witness pointing to a person and saying, "That is the one." Juries trust it. Families trust it. Even the witness often trusts it with complete sincerity. Yet decades of research and wrongful conviction cases have shown that eyewitness confidence can be dangerously misleading. Memory for faces is vulnerable to stress, poor lighting, brief exposure, cross-racial error, suggestion, and flawed lineup procedures. A witness may start uncertain, then grow more confident through repetition, feedback, and the simple act of telling the story again. By the time they speak in court, certainty can sound absolute, even if the original perception was shaky. This is what makes eyewitness testimony so haunting. It combines strong emotion, moral urgency, and the authority of lived experience, while still remaining profoundly fallible. A person can be honest, sincere, and wrong, all at once. The confidence persuades not because it guarantees truth, but because it feels so humanly real. Children are especially sensitive to suggestion because trust comes first. A child enters the world depending on older minds to explain what is real, safe, and meaningful. That makes trust one of childhood's greatest strengths and one of its greatest vulnerabilities. When a trusted adult asks leading questions, repeats an idea, or reacts strongly to certain answers, a child may begin reshaping memory or belief to fit the adult's expectations. This does not mean children are foolish. It means their social wiring is doing exactly what it evolved to do: learn from caregivers before skepticism is fully built. In legal settings, therapy, schools, and family disputes, this matters enormously. A child can become certain of something partly because certainty was socially rewarded. The feeling of recall may be sincere, yet the content may have been guided. What makes this so fascinating is that the child is not merely reporting reality. They are learning how reality is supposed to sound when spoken to the people they most need to trust. Recovered memories can feel real, even when details were accidentally shaped. Memory brought back after years of absence can feel electrifying. A forgotten scene returns. Emotion surges. The person may feel they have finally uncovered something buried and important. Sometimes that is exactly what has happened. But memory recovery is not a simple excavation. It is a reconstructive process shaped by suggestion, imagination, expectation, and the atmosphere in which recall occurs. If a person is repeatedly encouraged to search for hidden trauma, to picture possibilities vividly, or to interpret emotional discomfort as proof of a specific forgotten event, details can begin forming around that pressure. The final memory may feel deeply real because the emotion attached to it is real. Yet some parts of the scene may have been built later, rather than recovered whole from the past. This is why the subject is so sensitive and so haunting. A person can be utterly sincere, emotionally shaken, and still carrying a memory whose final form was partly shaped during the search itself. Hypnotic suggestion can influence sensation without erasing free will. One of the strangest things about hypnosis is that it can alter real experience while leaving the person recognizably themselves. Under suggestion, a hand may feel lighter. A painful sensation may dim. A taste may seem sweeter, or more unpleasant than before. In some cases, people respond as though a harmless touch were hot, or as though discomfort had softened into distance. Brain imaging suggests these changes are not just play acting. Attention and perception are genuinely shifting. Yet this does not mean hypnosis turns a person into a mindless puppet. Values, boundaries, and personality do not simply vanish. The person remains an active participant in the experience, not an empty vessel. That is what makes it so fascinating. The mind can be guided from within by language, expectation, and focused attention without surrendering the whole self. Suggestion can reach surprisingly deep, but it usually works with a person's mental machinery rather than seizing it outright. Stage hypnosis works partly because expectation becomes performance and permission. A stage hypnosis show can look like pure mind control. Volunteers dance, freeze, forget names, or behave in bizarre ways while the audience laughs in disbelief. Yet the deeper reality is more subtle and more interesting. People who step on stage already expect something unusual to happen. They have agreed to enter a setting where normal restraint is loosened and playful obedience is rewarded. Once selected, they are surrounded by social pressure, attention, and cues that make performance feel strangely natural. The hypnotist's suggestions matter, but so do permission and role. The volunteer is no longer acting only as an ordinary private self. They are acting within a powerful public frame that says, "Extraordinary behavior belongs here." This does not mean it is fake. It means social expectation and focused suggestion are working together. The mind becomes more willing to follow a temporary script because the environment itself has made that script feel possible, safe, and strangely enjoyable. Brain stimulation can shift mood, movement, and impulse with bursts of electricity. Touch the brain with electricity in the right way, and experience can change with astonishing speed. Doctors and researchers have used electrical stimulation to reduce tremors, interrupt certain symptoms, and study how different regions contribute to mood, motion, and decision-making. A tiny current can alter the timing of neural firing, which means a person may suddenly move more easily, feel a shift in emotional tone, or find an urge becoming weaker or stronger. What makes this so remarkable is that thought and feeling can be nudged by something as physical and precise as a pulse of electricity. The change may be helpful, unsettling, or both. It reminds us that the mind is not floating above biology. It is emerging from living tissue whose activity can be modulated. In that fact lies both hope and unease. If circuits can be adjusted from the outside, then mood, will, and identity may be more electrically delicate than we once imagined. Electrodes deep in the brain have triggered laughter, fear, and sudden déjà vu. During certain neurosurgical procedures, doctors sometimes stimulate tiny regions of the brain while the patient is awake. The results can be extraordinary. A brief pulse in one area may trigger laughter that feels spontaneous and undeniable. Another may produce a wave of fear with no obvious cause in the room. In some cases, people report sudden déjà vu, as though the moment has already happened and is returning from somewhere half-remembered. These episodes can appear and disappear in seconds, tied to the precise location of stimulation. That is what makes them so fascinating. They reveal that some of the experiences we think of as deeply personal and mysterious may depend on fragile patterns inside specific neural circuits. The feeling is genuine while it lasts, even if its cause is artificial. A burst of current can conjure something that feels intimate, emotional, and meaningful, reminding us how strangely physical the machinery of inner life really is. Scientists can decode rough images from brain activity with surprising accuracy. For a long time, the inside of the mind seemed completely private. You could ask what someone saw or imagined, but you could not directly glimpse the content itself. A boundary has started to blur. Using brain scans and machine learning, scientists have shown that it is possible to reconstruct rough visual information from patterns of brain activity. The result is not a perfect photograph of thought, but it can resemble shapes, scenes, letters, or general categories with startling accuracy. Show someone a set of images, measure activity in visual regions, and the patterns begin revealing what kind of thing the brain is processing. This is astonishing because it hints that perception leaves readable traces in the nervous system. The mind is not speaking in words, yet its activity can still be translated into something visible. The technology is still limited, but the direction is clear. Thought may never again feel quite as sealed off as it once did. Brain-computer interfaces raise new questions about thought, privacy, and control. A brain-computer interface can translate neural activity into action, allowing a person to move a cursor, type words, or control a device using signals from the brain itself. For people with paralysis, that possibility is extraordinary. It offers communication and agency where the body may no longer cooperate. Yet the same technology opens unsettling questions. If a machine can read patterns tied to intention, what counts as mental privacy in the future? If software can also stimulate or guide neural activity, where does assistance end and influence begin? These are no longer distant philosophical puzzles. They are emerging practical concerns. The more closely devices connect with the brain, the more important it becomes to ask who owns the data, who interprets it, and how protected the user truly is. The promise is immense, but so is the responsibility. Once technology begins meeting thought at the level of direct neural exchange, freedom may depend on safeguards we are only beginning to imagine. Neurochemicals like dopamine can make learning feel irresistible and automatic. Dopamine is often described as the pleasure chemical, but that misses something deeper and stranger. It is less about simple enjoyment than about salience, motivation, and the urge to pursue what seems meaningful or rewarding. When dopamine circuits fire strongly, the brain begins tagging an action, cue, or outcome as important. That helps explain why learning can sometimes feel almost automatic. A successful move in a game, a social reward, a surprising win, or a meaningful discovery can light up motivation so powerfully that repetition feels compelling. The brain starts anticipating the next pattern, the next chance, the next signal that something valuable may arrive. This is excellent for survival and skill building. It helps creatures keep learning from what matters. But it also means modern systems can exploit it. Apps, games, markets, and habits can all tap the same machinery. What feels like interest may partly be chemistry, teaching the mind what to chase, remember, and return to. Oxytocin can increase trust, but not always wisdom. Oxytocin is often romanticized as a chemical of love and bonding, and there is truth in that picture. It plays important roles in social attachment, caregiving, and the feeling of closeness between people. But its effects are more complicated than simple kindness. Under some conditions, oxytocin can make people more trusting and more open to social connection. That sounds wonderful, until you realize trust is not the same as wisdom. A more trusting person is not automatically better at detecting manipulation, deceit, or danger. In some contexts, stronger bonding may even deepen loyalty to one's own group while making outsiders feel more distant. This makes oxytocin fascinating because it reveals how social chemistry can amplify connection without guaranteeing good judgment. The warm feeling of closeness can be real and biologically grounded, yet still leave a person vulnerable if the target of that trust is harmful. Bonding is powerful, but bonding alone is not a moral compass. Psychedelics can temporarily loosen rigid thought patterns and suggestibility, Under psychedelic substances, many people report that ordinary mental boundaries become less fixed. Familiar loops of thought may soften. Assumptions that usually feel solid can seem newly strange, open, or fluid. This is part of why psychedelics are being studied in relation to depression, trauma, and deeply ingrained patterns of rumination. When rigid mental habits loosen, new perspectives sometimes become possible. But the same openness that can be therapeutic can also increase suggestibility. In an altered state, setting, guidance, expectation, and social influence may carry greater weight than usual. A supportive environment can help steer the experience toward healing. A manipulative one can steer it somewhere darker. That is what makes these substances so fascinating and so delicate. They do not simply add hallucinations to ordinary consciousness. They can rearrange how belief, meaning, and interpretation are formed in the moment. When the mind becomes more flexible, it can become more free, but also more permeable. Meditation can strengthen awareness of mental influence by slowing automatic reactions. Most of the time, thought moves quickly. A feeling arises, a judgment forms, and behavior begins before the person has clearly noticed the sequence. Meditation can interrupt that speed. By practicing attention to breathe, sensation, thought, or awareness itself, people often become better at catching mental events earlier in their unfolding. A flash of irritation is noticed before it turns into speech. A craving is seen before it becomes action. A fear-soaked story appears in the mind and is recognized as a story rather than a command. That does not make a person immune to influence, but it can widen the space between impulse and response. In that widened space, suggestion becomes easier to examine. This is what makes meditation so interesting in the context of control. It trains observation of the machinery itself. The mind that notices how it is being pulled gains a little more freedom than the mind that is always already moving. Mindfulness can reveal how many thoughts arrive without being invited. Sit quietly and pay attention long enough, and an unsettling fact begins to emerge. Thoughts do not wait politely for permission. They appear. Plans, memories, worries, songs, judgments, fantasies, flashes of anger, and random fragments all rise into awareness on their own. Mindfulness makes this visible in a way ordinary busyness often hides. The person begins noticing that much of mental life is spontaneous rather than chosen. That realization can be both humbling and liberating. Humbling, because the mind is less under direct command than many people assume. Liberating, because not every thought that appears has to be obeyed, believed, or woven into identity. This matters deeply in any discussion of mental influence. A person who sees thoughts arriving automatically may become less dazzled by them and less easily pushed around by every passing inner event. Mindfulness does not stop the stream. It changes the relationship to it, revealing that the mind produces whether or not the self-ordered reign. Prophets, oracles, and rulers have long used altered states to guide belief. Long before modern psychology, human societies noticed that unusual states of mind could carry unusual authority. A trembling oracle, a fasting mystic, a dream-seized ruler, or a prophet speaking after ecstatic experience could seem to touch another level of reality altogether. Altered states made words feel heavier, stranger, and more than personal. Whether induced by ritual, sleep loss, chanting, intoxicants, meditation, or overwhelming emotion, these conditions often convinced listeners that they were hearing not just opinion, but revelation. Rulers understood the power of that impression. So did priests, shamans, and visionaries. If a message could be linked to trance, divine contact, or sacred disturbance, belief might travel farther and resistance might weaken. What makes this so fascinating is that the altered state itself became part of the persuasion. The speaker was not only making a claim, they were embodying a condition that suggested contact with forces beyond ordinary judgment, and that suggestion could reorganize entire communities. Ancient empires understood spectacle as a tool for shaping public thought. Power does not always persuade by argument. Sometimes it persuades by overwhelming the senses. Ancient empires knew this well. Vast processions, towering monuments, glittering treasures, military parades, ritual drama, and public ceremonies all worked together to make authority feel enormous, inevitable, and almost supernatural. A ruler elevated above crowds, framed by scale and symbol, could seem less like a person and more like the center of reality itself. Spectacle changed what people felt before it changed what they thought. Awe, fear, pride, and submission could all be generated through coordinated display. That emotional force helped bind populations to myths of destiny, divine favor, and imperial permanence. The lesson has never really disappeared. Modern states, movements, and brands still use image, scale, and staged emotion for similar reasons. A spectacle does not need to prove power in words. It lets people feel power in their bodies, and that feeling can become its own kind of argument. Cold War brainwashing fears mixed real psychology with cultural panic. During the Cold War, the idea of brainwashing gripped the public imagination with extraordinary force. Stories of prisoners, defectors, propaganda, and hidden techniques created the fear that minds might be erased and rewritten like tapes. Some of that fear rested on real psychological pressures. Isolation, coercion, confession rituals, sleep deprivation, and intense ideological control can absolutely shape belief and behavior. But the era also added a layer of cultural panic. Popular imagination often exaggerated the process into something near magical, as though a person could be turned instantly into a puppet by secret methods alone. The truth was both less cinematic and more disturbing. Human minds are influenceable, but usually through social pressure, repetition, trauma, dependency, and context, rather than instant mental takeover. What makes the Cold War moment so fascinating is that it revealed two things at once: real vulnerabilities in human psychology and a public appetite for dramatic myths about total control hiding in the crash. Shadows. The phrase "mind control" hides many forces, from ads to ideology. The phrase sounds dramatic, as though it points only to hypnosis, secret experiments, or sinister laboratories. But in reality, it covers a huge range of influences, many of them ordinary and publicly visible. Advertising trains desire. Algorithms steer attention. Groups shape belief. Language frames reality. Trauma changes what feels safe. Authority alters conscience. Ritual binds identity. None of these alone may look like the science fiction image of total control, yet together they reveal something more interesting. Human minds are shaped constantly by culture, environment, biology, and relationship. The dramatic phrase can therefore mislead if it makes people search only for exotic techniques, while ignoring everyday systems of influence. What matters is not whether control looks theatrical. What matters is whether thought, choice, and perception are being directed in ways the person does not fully see. The real story is not one secret method. It is the many overlapping pressures that quietly shape what feels natural, true, and chosen. The most effective influence often feels like your own idea. Force attracts attention. Manipulation that feels self-generated often slips through unnoticed. That is why the most effective influence can be so hard to detect. A person is guided toward a conclusion, but the path is arranged so subtly that the conclusion feels internally authored. Suggestions are timed carefully. Options are framed. Social cues are placed. Emotional atmosphere is set. By the time the thought appears clearly in consciousness, it feels like a personal insight rather than an outside product. This is incredibly powerful because people defend their own ideas more fiercely than instructions imposed on them. Once ownership is felt, resistance falls away. The person does not feel controlled. They feel awakened, convinced, or simply honest with themselves. That is the elegance of the method. It leaves pride intact. In some cases, it even strengthens pride. The mind loves the sensation of discovery, and influence becomes strongest when it borrows that sensation instead of confronting it directly. Freedom of thought depends partly on noticing who is shaping attention. Attention is the gateway through which almost every influence must pass. Before a belief settles, before a desire grows, before an outrage hardens, something has usually directed awareness toward one object instead of another. A platform highlights one story. A leader repeats one threat. A rune design points the body in one direction. A memory cue revives one feeling. Once attention is captured, the rest of the mind begins building around what has been selected. That means freedom of thought is not only about having opinions. It is also about seeing how those opinions are being fed, framed, and staged. A person who never questions what is repeatedly placed before them may mistake curation for reality. Noticing the shapers of attention does not grant perfect independence, but it creates precious friction. It slows the automatic handoff from exposure to belief. In that pause lies one of the real foundations of mental freedom, the ability to ask why this, why now, and who benefits. The mind is easiest to guide when it thinks it is fully free. Open coercion often provokes resistance. People push back when they feel pushed. The far more elegant route is to leave the feeling of freedom intact while quietly shaping the path choices travel along. If a person believes they are acting entirely on their own, they become less likely to inspect the influences already guiding them. Social norms feel like common sense. Defaults feel neutral. Repeated narratives feel self-discovered. Emotional reactions feel purely personal. In that state, influence disappears into the background and becomes difficult to question because nothing seems imposed. This is what makes hidden guidance so effective. It does not crush agency. It recruits it. The person's own sense of autonomy becomes part of the mechanism. They walk willingly because the road feels natural. That is a profound and slightly eerie truth about human minds. We are often most influenceable not when freedom is removed, but when freedom is preserved as a feeling while the field around it has already been shaped. Thank you for drifting through this fascinating world with me tonight. We've wandered through a strange and powerful landscape together. A place where thoughts can be guided, where fear can narrow the world, where repetition can make an idea feel true, and where the mind can be nudged by voices, crowds, symbols, stories, and even the hidden rhythms of the body itself. We've moved through laboratories and courtrooms, through cults, casinos, childhood memories, glowing screens, ancient empires, and the silent chemistry of the brain. And along the way, one thing becomes clear. The human mind is not weak, but it is deeply influenceable. It is open, responsive, social, and always in conversation with the world around it. And now, perhaps, you can let all of that simply drift. You do not need to hold on to every thought. You do not need to solve any of it tonight. Just let your body grow heavier. Let your jaw soften. Let your breathing slow into its own natural rhythm. And as these ideas begin to fade into the distance, like lanterns dimming one by one along a dark and quiet road, allow your mind to loosen its grip on the day. And if you're still awake in a moment, there will be another video waiting for you on screen, ready to carry you into the next gentle journey. And if you enjoyed this one, you might like, subscribe, or leave a thought below. It helps this sleepy little corner of the world reach others too. For now, just rest. Sleep well, and good night.